A very warm welcome to the 8th Amnesty Members Kikao. My name is Matthias Kinyoda, the Communications and Membership Manager at Amnesty International Kenya. It's an absolute pleasure to see you all here today as we come together to discuss an incredibly crucial theme. The death penalty is outdated and it is time to abolish it. This Kikao series began its journey back in March of 2023, and we've been meeting on every second Wednesday of the month to have exciting and thought-provoking conversations on human rights. Throughout this season, we have delved into some of the most pressing human rights issues of our time. We have passionately debated and advocated for minority rights, championed media freedom, discussed the right to housing, explored the complexities of sexuality and gender, and marveled at the inspiring power of youth action. And today, we're gathered here to tackle a matter of utmost importance: the abolition of the death penalty. And as you know, the month of October is anchored, we anchored this conversation on the abolition of the death penalty. The Amnesty Members Kikao series has been a platform for us to engage deeply and meaningfully on crucial matters that shape our world. We've been honored to host some remarkable guests, including the now government spokesperson, Honorable Isaac Mahura, who joined us in the last Members Kikao on disability rights. These Kikaos are meticulously designed as member-only discussion sessions created with the sole purpose of engaging our members in dynamic, insightful, and inspiring conversations. We have strived to foster an environment where your voices and opinions matter. So we encourage you to actively participate in this Kikao, share your thoughts in the chat, and raise your hand to speak with us and engage with us in these conversations. As we embark on today's dialogue, we invite you to bring your passion and insights and your unwavering commitment to the forefront. The topics we explore today, the death penalty, is one that demands our attention and advocacy. It is a conversation that transcends borders and speaks to the very core of human rights. Let's be excited, let's be engaged, and let's be unwavering in our belief that change is possible. Together, we can create a world where the death penalty is consigned to history as an outdated relic. The time has come to abolish it, and it is our collective voice that will help shape that change. Thank you for being part of this conversation, and I will invite us to sing the national anthem. Just a second.
I guess, Matthias, because of the time lag, we'll sing with our microphones muted. Otherwise, it will be very interesting.
Yes, of course. We'll hand over to our moderator for the day, Irungu Horton, to take over the conversation. Karibu, Irungu.
Great, thank you very much, Matthias, and good evening to members of Amnesty International Kenya. We have a good, healthy group of people. I can see some folks I've not seen for a while. Let me not speak to you, but I hope you will take the mic at some point. So this is, as Matt says, one of the ways in which we have begun to engage each other as members. And I think let me invite everybody just to drop a greeting, your name, and where you're joining us from on the chat so that we're able to see each other. I can see Baraza Collins from Uasin Gishu and from the Kapseret Circle of Conscience, among others. This session is an exciting session. It is exciting for two reasons. One is that we are going to discuss a topic that is probably one of Amnesty International's oldest campaigns, but we are discussing it in a new policy environment. In fact, something that might shift dramatically in the course of this year. So we have an opportunity to just reflect on the difference that we could make as a membership. And I'm hoping that we are able to do a short poll at the end and send our communication to the authorities on this particular issue. We also, this is the first Kikao after the annual delegates conference. So towards the end, I will take a few minutes just to share with you some of the decisions that your delegates made in the annual delegates conference a week or so ago. But allow me to jump in and just once again to welcome everybody to this conversation. It's an open space. Practically what we will invite everybody to do is if you want to take the floor, just to indicate by your electronic hand. I will invite Matthias to assist me to identify people and in case I miss it, and we will take comments and questions. So I will probably kick off first of all and just frame the conversation a little bit in the following way. Death penalty, the abolition of the death penalty is probably Amnesty's second oldest campaign after the freedom of expression. It is a campaign that Amnesty members globally are engaged with. And for some of the older sections, like France, for example, this is a major focus for them, even up to now, several decades after the campaign was framed. For us in Kenya, there are a number of important studies that have been developed, and I would really encourage, and I'll put this on the link at some point, on the chat at some point, a link to two important studies. The first is the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights study called Living with a Sentence. And one of the things that they find, and just allow me to do this in a bit of detail, so you just get a sense of where the country is feeling on this issue. In 2023, 90% of prisoners on death row are undereducated, underemployed or unemployed, and were informal hustlers when they were convicted. 1 in every 2 of the people were addicted to alcohol, and 89% of them were supporting not only their own families, despite their undereducation and their lack of employment, but other dependents as well. 90% of the people who are convicted and sentenced to death, and 90% of them are first-time offenders, right? So there is a stereotype that many of the death row prisoners are hardened criminals. 90% of them are first-time offenders. And the statistic that I think worried me most was that 3 out of 10 of the people that are convicted for serious crimes and receive death sentences, 3 out of 10 did not feel that the death penalty was a deterrent to them at the time. 1 in 2 of these people had no access to an advocate or they experienced police abuse and intimidation at the time of their arrest. So if you get a sense of what it is like to be, convicted and sentenced to death. Last year, there was an important opinion poll also by the Kenya National Commission that stated that the 40% of Kenyans now want the state to abolish the practice, and 10% more of the population are undecided whether it is an effective crime deterrent. So I think the tide has changed in many ways on this issue. And why this conversation is so important, I'm going to open up to invite questions and comments from all of you, is that, we have this conversation one day after the International Day Against the Death Penalty. The theme this year was an interesting one. It was death penalty is an irreversible torture. And in many ways, it captures the unfortunate and lived reality of those that are sentenced to death. we're hoping that we will be joined by one former death row prisoner. And if he joins, I'll bring him in. And talking to him several times, and we're going to play a video from him in a minute. I think one of the things that has really struck us is just how cruel and inhuman the degrading treatment of being on death row. But we have this conversation in an important and pivotal moment, which is that the Honorable Opiyo Wandayi has actually formally placed in the National Assembly legal amendments to abolish the death penalty by making changes to the penal code and proposing that all death sentences should be converted to life imprisonment. So this is an important conversation that we're having. So allow me to invite Matthias to just show the video from Wilson Kinyua, who spoke on this issue in a video that we played to about, I think it was upwards of 4 million people during the elections, presidential debates. Back to you, Matthias.
Leaders don't need to have all the answers. Ordinary people often do. If leaders would just listen. The death penalty breaches human rights, in particular, the right to life and the right to live free from torture or cruelty. The death penalty is a symptom of a culture of violence and not a solution to it.
My name is Wilson Kinyua. I am a lawyer by profession. I specialize in human rights and criminal law. I became a lawyer after suffering an innocent conviction that almost got me executed. The reason I do not support death penalty, imagine you execute somebody today and tomorrow you realize you've executed the wrong person. What amount of remedy can bring such a person back to life, back to his family and children? Government, let's abolish death penalty.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Matthias. And again, we are hoping that Wilson will join us this evening, but if not, the conversation is wide open. Allow me to open up the conversation and invite contributions and thoughts on this topic. But actually, before we do that, let's play a little game with each other. So if you can go down to the bottom of your screen and where it allows you to give some reactions. Let's just see without any sense of judgment. This is a psychologically unsafe place, unlike committee, particularly maximum security. And if you're on death row, that is not considered to be a very safe space for you. But I'm going to invite you to raise your hands, or actually to give an indication of thumbs up if you are an abolitionist, if you believe that the death penalty should be abolished. We'll do this twice, at the beginning and at the end, and let's see how the shift goes. So once again, if you can go to the reaction section in Zoom and just thumbs up if you're an abolitionist. And your membership is secure either way. We will not ask you to leave, nor will we criticize you. We understand that on issues like this, we are all on a different path, and we're at a different point in the journey. Those of you in favor of the death penalty, thumbs up. Okay, I saw maybe 5 or 6. I'm not sure whether that's the case. Eunice has thumbs have gone up again. Thank you for doing that again. Let me just test the technology just to see whether it's either the technology or our views that are being expressed here. What I'm going to ask you to do is, if you are in favor of keeping the death penalty, let me ask you to do a thumbs up for us as well. So now we're taking thumbs up for those who are in favor of the death penalty being retained. Okay, let me just see returning officers of the Electoral Commission, or the Amnesty Electoral Commission. I have not seen a hand go up for in favor of. I've seen about 6 or 7 go up in abolition, and the rest remain the silent majority. Matthias, am I correct?
Yes, you are.
Okay, great. Okay, so wherever you are on the spectrum, that's fine. Let me open up and see whether we can take a few questions and comments on the topic of the abolition of the death penalty. In the chat, I've shared a couple of resources. The first is an article that was written by Maurice Oginga and myself, based on the first study by the Kenya National Commission for Human Rights. Maurice is a very interesting member of ours, co-member of ours. He is a prison officer and serves the government and the nation essentially in a prison in the country. And he wrote a piece on this. So you will see these two articles there. Feel free to share them publicly even and tweet. The hashtag for this topic is death penalty KE. So hash death penalty KE if you want to generate that conversation. So let me now open up a little bit to colleagues, and I'll give an opportunity for people to leap forward. If not, I will just invite people individually to switch on their cameras and to comment. And the question really is, what's your view on the death penalty? Is it time to abolish? Is it still time to keep it? How important is it for you that we retain this this law? So just raise your hands or comments. And as people are raising their hands, let me call on perhaps a member that's here. Let me call on let's see. Why don't I call on Charlene Muduri to join us? What's your view on this topic, Charlene? And again, no, I guess some people may still be in traffic, so they might bring a whole matatu to this conversation, which would be exciting and very welcome. All right, let me go to another member. Let me bring in Irene Odenyi, who has declared she's an abolitionist. Karibu, Irene. Why are you an abolitionist? And feel free to keep your camera off if you're driving or you are in a place where it doesn't make sense to do so. Stay safe.
Good evening.
Irene, I think you have the mic now.
Good evening. I don't know whether you can hear me.
Yep, coming through loud and clear. And then we'll come to Zaina.
Okay. In my opinion, first of all, I am an abolitionist, because for me, so far, I don't think we have evidence that shows that the death penalty can effectively deter crime more than any other forms of punishment. So on that basis, for me, I'm an abolitionist completely.
Okay, great. Let's go to Zaina. And welcome, Nelman. I see you there from Laikipia University.
Hello, everyone. I am an abolitionist. I believe everyone has the right to life, like the full length of your life. But on the other hand, we need to work on corruption so that we do not get people wrongfully convicted and risk having their lives miserably led in prison. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much, Zaina. Let me call on somebody who I've known for, gosh, longer than my children. Stephen Gossesei, are you able to take the mic and share your views on this topic? And I apologize for declaring how many years we've known each other. I see your mic is unmuted, but no sound as yet. Okay, no sound. I guess You may be trying to fix that. Let me go to Nelman. Are you there from Laikipia University?
Yes, I'm present.
Great, bro. Let me ask a question. What's your view on the death penalty? Is it time to abolish, time to keep?
Yeah, I guess the
Okay, let's try that again. Nelman, are you there? Okay, I think we're having a difficulty with... Oh, no, you're in now. Nelman, if you could just start again. Okay, allow me to go
time to abolish it, because it's really okay.
Good.
It's like, okay, I mean the penalty.
Let me just give you another opportunity, Nelman, because I think we missed the beginning of that. If you could just restate your position, and then we'll come to Beryl and then to Charity.
Okay, I mean, like, this is the right time to abolish the death penalty, because it's really degrading the human life, and it's making a lot of the meaning about the natural life of a person. So this is the right time to abolish it. We have to value the human life.
Okay. Thank you very much, Nelman. Let me be a bit provocative, and I'll come to Beryl and then to Charity. Sometimes we have these conversations with a sense of intellectual and theoretical distance, a slight sense of remoteness. So I want you to put yourselves in the shoes of, let me give you an example, Baby Sagini's relatives, not the ones that conspired to kill that 3-year-old child. But let me put you in the shoes of their family, or his family. And, is it not appropriate in a case where you have a 3-year-old child that has been systematically targeted by a grandmother, an uncle, and a cousin for death, purely for the reasons of land inheritance and succession? Is it not justifiable to put them to death for such a heinous attempt? Let me open up to Beryl and then Charity. Beryl, over to you.
Thank you, Irungu, and good evening, everybody. So you've really thrown the spanner in the works with that scenario, but it's a real scenario. And for me, there are no two questions about it. The death penalty is outdated. It's long overdue. Actually, it's not about time. It's long overdue. It should be abolished for reasons that have already been mentioned. It's not a deterrent. People will continue to kill whether you have the death penalty or not. And then what's the point of having that penalty hanging around and it's not even being used? Because the last time anyone was executed in Kenya was in 1987. That is many years ago. And so you can see that in practice, Kenya is abolitionist, but it's not abolitionist by law. And so I think those who have survived the death row to date are surviving just by the good graces of those in authority who have not exercised the authority to execute. But also, as someone had mentioned, death penalty is a violation of human rights. If we have the right to life enshrined in the Constitution, then it is a violation. And finally, it is very, the death penalty is finality. The finality of it is completely irreversible. And so just arguing on the ethics of perchance wrong conviction, then there's just no remedy to that. And so for me, on those basis of those three reasons, amongst many others, I think the death penalty is not justified in any way, and it should be done away with. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Beryl. Very clear. And let me go to Charity.
Hi, good evening, Irungu and everybody. This is Charity from Uasin Gishu cases. I've always been a proponent of the death penalty, actually. I've always believed that an eye for an eye is the answer to some things until I became a human rights defender. So I want to thank Amnesty for changing my mind, because for a very long time I thought, a long time, for a very, very long time. And then it became even worse when I became a mother. I was like, if somebody was to do anything to my child, I would personally, just kill the person. So I've always imagined that if somebody takes a life, then his life or their life, I should, pay for that. But since becoming a human rights defender, I've changed my mind, and I think there's nothing in this world that can pay for a life that is lost or for a crime, that has been committed, however terrible it is. So I think that it's our time that we do away with the death penalty and embrace life without parole, or maybe a similar kind of justice. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Charity, and thanks for bringing yourself into that conversation, because I think many of us all, worry about our loved ones. We worry about our families. We really struggle with what would we do if we lost one of them to a serious crime or a murder. Let me invite Fatuma, who's commented on the chat, but let me give her an opportunity give us an opportunity to hear her voice and just to hear what her views are on this as well. Yeah, I think, good. Let's go to Zainab. Zainab, you're raising an interesting question. What about the victims' families? What is their justice if we remove the death penalty? Zainab, I don't know if you want to take the mic and talk us through your thoughts.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, everybody. Let's go to Zainab first and then come back. Just raise your hand if you'd like to come in on this. Over to you, Zainab Mohammed, and where you could let us know where you're calling in from.
I'm from Mombasa. I've been listening to the conversation, and it's very interesting. But then my question will be, okay, I had my sister talk about, they don't really believe in an eye for an eye versus she became a mother. I'm speaking from somebody who has experienced a close member, whose life was taken away too soon. The many things I would say I would want to happen to the person who did it, I can't express them here now because I don't think it's right. But I'm just asking, like, when we're talking about these things, what happens to the victims, the wake these people leave behind of what they have done, and the pain and the things they just can't take back, and the things you have to deal with over and over again. What happens to these people? Do you ever think about these people and how they've been affected and how, they've lost something they can never take back?
Yeah. No, great.
And
great.
them
Go ahead.
And them staying there, nobody's going to kill them there. But when they come out here, what is it, the consequences of just them not getting their freedom? But what about the victims? Who comes after and tells us that, this is how we're going to move forward from this person? What about the ones who don't want to forgive?
That's great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Zainab. And let me just as the host of the conversation, I'm going to be as provocative in different directions simultaneously. So don't get too worried. My job is to generate a robust conversation, an honest conversation, so that we as members are strengthened in the convictions that we have. And I think I want to build on Zainab's comment. So there are four major arguments for the death penalty if you listen to the people who promote this argument. The first is that one, which is what happens to the victims' families? How do we get justice for the victims? The second one relates to the death penalty deters serious criminals. The idea that people who would like to commit murder or homicide, they will not do it if they know they're going to be executed. The third argument really relates to the argument that that criminals who have taken the life of others should also forfeit their lives. This is the argument of an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, and an arm for an arm, if we take it to another level. And then the last one really is the argument that, by executing somebody, that criminal will never, ever commit another crime. And this is particularly important for people who have shown their capacity to execute, people or murder people severally, the serial killers that are among us. There are some people, as the argument would go, that are just irredeemable. They are psychologically so disturbed and antisocial that they will, if you allow them, they will continue to kill. So let me invite other comments on this issue. We have a good comment, an interesting comment from Beryl, which says she would be interested to know if there are statistics that indicate that capital crime rates are higher in the countries that have abolished the death penalty. And she makes the point that anecdotally, this is not the case, that by abolishing the death penalty, you do not see surges or large numbers of capital crimes increase. Let's see, any other comments, questions? Let's go to Beatrice Minor. Where are you dialing in from? And what is your view on this? And then we'll come to Basra.
Hello, good evening. I'm here with you from Nairobi, Kenya. Until I saw what the death penalty entails and the history of it in the United States, I've always been a passive person that I don't want to engage in this discussion. And then some few years ago, I also witnessed a live mob injustice, and it was right outside our home. So when I saw that kid getting hit with very huge building stones, I thought maybe this is something that is going to live in the conscience of the murderer, because I was definitely a team lead who did that. And I would rather the death penalty is abolished, and the person that is liable to taking another person's life, which is a violation of human rights, is left to deal with the consequences that comes up from the conscious bit of it, maybe through life imprisonment or just isolation from the humanistic population, that is people outside here who are living a human life and who are actually just conscious about what the seriousness of human life. Then the other reason to support it, since I'm a humanist, is to support the abolitionist, is that killing a person will not necessarily bring that life back. So an eye for an eye will make the world go blind. So yes, this person has done something wrong, but what if in the process someone is also framed for murder? For instance, I saw the death of a Shujaa recently, not a Shujaa, but someone who was in jail for a very long time because he was accused of killing, I don't know whether it's Piogama Pinto. So what if this guy had been killed on a framed charge? This guy would have died, a death that was not supposed to be his. And then again, it wouldn't bring this guy back who has been killed. So in my view, right to life is as important, but also to victims, I would rather they deal with their conscience and they get to suffer from it there afterwards. And the best way to do that is to isolate that person from the rest of the population. So that person should not spend a single day if proven guilty with people out here. That person should be held behind bars for the longest time possible, maybe even life imprisonment. That will be okay. And then he should be forced, or rather he should be allowed to face, to live with his conscience, knowing that he's a murderer or she's a murderer and not fit to be within the same human population out here. So for me, I believe right to life is important, and it is not to justify that so many people outside here get killed, even by petty criminals, and not petty criminals, but armed robbers. And when they die, the question we always ask is, what of the victims? What of the people they rape? What of the people that I can actually point a finger and say, that person did this to a person, and I saw it, and he got away with it. So I believe taking into account this person's act and taking that person to a correction facility will be more lucrative than killing, because killing is just a quick way to end, it's like ending misery, like, or ending his or her kind of mental state. So let this person suffer, and how you suffer is by alienating them from the population. I'm not a judge, but for me, don't kill. Let that person face his conscience as a murderer. Yes.
Very clear, Beatrice. Thanks for that. Just maybe interesting for us to recall, Kisilu Mutua was the man that you referred to. He was accused of killing Pio Pinto. He was convicted for 36 years behind bars. He would have died if we had, if the death penalty had been operational. And he died at the age of 79. And in 2017, the High Court awarded him 2.5 million after discovering that he had been tortured while he was in police custody, and that it was on his own plea of guilty that he was convicted and implicated in the murder of Pio Pinto, one of our Shujas. Let's go to Basra, and let's hear your views on this.
Thank you very much, Irungu. I'm really happy that today I have joined you. I joined Amnesty International debates from early this year, but really I haven't gotten a lot of time to attend most of the sessions. I was really interested today on this session because despite the fact that I have my own analysis and maybe a comment on what should be done, but I think I'm more into just listening and seeing what the majority of the people or Kenyans would think about this idea, because it's a catch-22 position, and it's actually really disheartening. Sometimes I listen to a KTN program. I think they talk about crime and stuff like that. And just recently, I think they did a repeat of a student who was in USIU, was coming from class and was driving around. I think he has, I don't know, I'm forgetting his name. And he was just around city center, and he was shot because somebody had reported that the car that he was driving was a car that had been stolen. So actually, in that kind of a position, you wonder, could this policeman have really checked whether this is the right information they have and is there, and if it's truly right that the victim or the murdered student was actually pleading for his life and he was not armed, then it gives you a position to say, okay, actually, if somebody was just reckless and in taking somebody else's life, they should also be the same thing should be done to them. But from a human rights perspective, and especially with the scenario in our country, first I forgot to mention what I work with women in borderlands. This is an NGO, I'm the founder, and we basically look at women and issues. So I also watched another documentary on specifically still KTN. I think they do a lot of things on crime. And it was about young girls in Busia, which have a very high rates of defilement and stuff like that. And when people follow, and mostly legal experts follow these cases, the files disappear, people do pay money to really get, so it's a catch-22 position. Somebody's life has been destroyed, young girls have been dropped out of school, they've been gotten pregnant, and now there is this person whom you also feel that from a human rights perspective, their life should not be taken until a due process is followed. But at the end of the day, if this person is found guilty, just because you destroyed somebody else's life and a younger girl whom he can either be a father to or a family or a relative to, and mostly some of these defilement take place within the context of people who know you, either those ones are taking you to school or those ones. So it's a really, for me, it is a debate that I would really want to follow and see. And I would really encourage Amnesty International to, especially in Kenya, in our Kenyan perspective, to really look at this issue so that we don't get serial killers and serial defilers coming into our society and it becomes a norm. We already have a lot of other issues, young pregnancies, teenage pregnancies, adolescents and stuff like that. And maybe it's a context that we'll also want to take hand in hand with other issues such as the values of this country, our morals as a society, and really, really bringing these things into from a very early age, so that these cases that we are seeing, that is happening currently can really be stabilized. Because if we really don't, and then the other issue is now corruption. Somebody, even at the high court, somebody who is even a lawyer can just take, people take bribes for cases that you can even see it is young kids. And I wonder whether this cyclic thing can easily be dealt with, but I want to be very optimistic because there has been this kind of issues even at other levels. Like we have had the struggle to democracy in Kenya, we have had a struggle to other things. So I think it is just a focus, and if as Kenyans we focus on something, we usually get it right. But sometimes a good issue like even devolution, you see the way devolution is working, but with the massive corruption that is taking place, you look at a business person who has been there for 30 years, 40 years, and all of a sudden they're doing contracts and they cannot be paid. And a whole life of somebody is totally messed up. And then with corruption,
Pastor, let me pick up on a couple of things that you've just said, right? I think the distinction that is useful to keep in mind is this distinction between, what we call extrajudicial killings, the use of police officers to take away unlawfully the life of individuals. We may not have an executioner. I went to committee probably about 3-4 years ago to meet with death row prisoners, and in that space met with Wilson Kinyua, and I was so delighted a year later to meet him in the Amnesty offices, which was one of the first places he came to after he was released. And when I went into the condemned block, or the condemned persons block, they mentioned that the area where they used to hang people, and it's probably the case that it is in that location that Dedan Kimathi was hung many years ago. They basically, it was just a courtyard. It was not used anymore. And every time the door was opened to cut the grass, the death row prisoners would even be hospitalized because of anxiety. They were not sure whether their time had come. But, there's a distinction between legal murder, which is the death penalty, and unlawful murder, which is the use of extrajudicial killings to execute suspects. I think the point you've raised is an important point also about, how do we ensure that prisoners or serial killers, if I can be more dramatic, or sex offenders or multiple rape offenders, that they are rehabilitated in our prisons, so that when they come out, they do not come out and commit the same antisocial crimes again. And I think this takes us into the area of rehabilitation. Unfortunately, Maurice Oginga is not here, because I know he's so passionate about this work. In fact, he would have talked to us about aftercare facilities, the lack of them, the lack of rehabilitation and integration facilities for people who are coming out of long-term incarceration into societies. And, rather than focusing on killing, prisoners, I think the focus has to also be on what is the quality of transformative justice. So I think that would be an issue. Let me see if there's anybody else who would like to comment as we come past the midway point. I think we've had a number of people joining us. So I just want to welcome you if you've joined us after we started. Drop your name and where you're dialing in from, and also what your views are on this topic. Are you an abolitionist or are you pro the death penalty? This is the conversation we're having this evening. So we're going for a little bit longer, and then we will turn to the annual delegates conference decisions that took place. Let me see. Can I see any hands? Any additional comments from people here? And again, it doesn't matter where you're calling, what position you're taking. We're really just taking the opportunity to educate ourselves on the death penalty. Again, there is a bill several amendments going through Parliament. We've received a formal communication as Amnesty Secretariat to write formally to and appear before the National Assembly on this issue. So whereas this is a good conversation, it's also helping us to clarify our positions so that when we go to Parliament, we are speaking on behalf of you, the members. Welcome, Ibrahim Bondi from Kenya Revenue Authority. I know you get bad rep at this time, but we know the work you're doing to try and keep government going. So thank you very much also for your service in that sense. That's not an opportunity to have a conversation about taxes, everybody. The topic today is death penalty. Okay. Let me see if there are any other additional comments before I close this topic, and perhaps invite Matt to take us through the opinion poll. Okay, I think most people who've wanted to speak have indicated and spoken. So let me perhaps, yeah, is
Hello.
it Esther?
Yes, thank you very much for the opportunity. I'm unable to raise my hand or to put a chat, but I strongly feel that I need to say a word. Do I go ahead?
Please do, yes. Thank you for coming
in.
Yes,
thank you. I start by saying that I'm a Christian and a believer of the Bible, and the Bible is very clear that God hates the death of a sinner. When a sinner is given another chance, they may repent. And that's why we take people to jail, so that they are rehabilitated. They can change, they can repent, they can become good people. We see them doing very nice things in the jail. But saying that you remove somebody's life when he's a sinner, you're even going against God's will. Thank you. That's all.
Great. Thank you very much, Esther. The scripture that you have quoted is Ezekiel 33:10. God hates the death of the wicked. So those of you who are Christians can follow up on that comment. I joined Amnesty 5 years ago. I've met at least two phenomenal former death row prisoners. One of them is Wilson Kenya, that we had invited to join us this evening. We listened to his statement, which went before the presidential debate last year, just before the elections. And it was an important intervention, because if you remember, at least one presidential candidate who was advocating for the legalization of ganja and had some interesting ideas about how to generate trade. He also advocated for the death penalty to be operationalized. And it was important, I think, that comment came out so powerfully at that time. The other person is Brother Uko, who is the executive director of Crime Sipor. And Oko is such a wonderful human being. He was accused of murder. He served his time. He is the first prisoner who got a law degree while in prison and came out with a distance education degree. And he now runs an organization that rehabilitates and deters young men particularly, but young men and women from essentially turning to a life of crime. If there's somebody who's very actively breaking up criminal gangs in this country, one at a time, it is Oko. So I just want to acknowledge those two individuals, and there are many others. Clean Start is an organization that focuses on basically rehabilitation of women, particularly women prisoners, after they come out. So these are all resources and people that we should be giving our support, and really give us the arguments that indicate why it is so important that we abolish the death penalty. So I'm going to switch and pivot to a other topic, which is to give an opportunity, given that we are just weeks, a few days from the annual delegates conference, and just to, on behalf of the
before that, the picture.
Yes.
I need to share a link.
Oh, yes, of course. Let's do that. I'm running ahead of myself. Thank you very much. Yeah, take the mic, and perhaps you may want to project something.
Yes, just a second. So yeah, we, as you know, Amnesty advocate for the abolition of the death penalty, and we hope through your support we'll be able to collect enough signatures to petition the government to officially abolish the death penalty. So on the chat, I've dropped a link to the petition we have online, and I'll just share my screen so that you can see the page, where how the page looks like and how you can participate. I don't know if you guys can see my screen.
It's coming through. That's great.
Yeah,
it's come through. It's very clear, and the link is working.
Yeah, the link is working. So please click on the link, read through, and just give us your name, email address, the country you're coming from, your telephone number, and if you want to receive any updates from Amnesty work, and add your signature. We encourage you to share the petition with your friends and networks, also in your social media spaces, to collect as many signatures as possible. We hope together and with your support, we're able to push for the abolition of the death penalty. Back to you, Rumu.
And just to mention that Amnesty International has, Kenya has basically reformed its internal communication systems. We are now compliant with the Data Protection Act. So therefore, your email address will not be shared with Kentucky Fried Chicken or with any other service provider. We will only use your details to reach you as Amnesty International Kenya. So feel confident in sharing the information. For many of you who are members already, we have your information, and we are continuing to refine the way that we manage that information. So we are at the end, towards the end of a data impact assessment as required by the law. We will not be asking for your irises, unlike WorldCoin. So feel free to fill in this petition, and perhaps we can reach out to you when we meet with Honorable Wandai and the National Assembly. For those of you who are interested. Yes, Zaina saying she attended the data protection training in Mombasa. So let's take a minute just to do that, and I'm doing it for myself also. So let's take a few minutes, and then I will, as we close off before the end of the evening, I will just give you an update on the decisions that were taken by the annual delegates conference. And thank you very much, Matt, for getting that up for us. Okay. Allow me, as we're moving to the 1 hour mark, to just continue as you're completing the poll or the petition, to basically just give an update. So and actually, as I'm doing this, let me just start by just acknowledging the various, I guess, structures within Amnesty International Kenya that are responsible. Many of you are aware, last year we successfully were accredited as a section of Amnesty International Kenya. And what that means is that we are now acknowledged and respected as a Amnesty entity that is driven by membership. And what that practically means is that every year there is an annual delegates conference. The delegates are elected, 2 from each circle of conscience or chapter, to represent the entire membership. We have a membership of roughly just over 4,000 members. They are now organized into 109 circles of conscience. If you're not a member of a circle of conscience, we will be emailing you fairly soon to give you an opportunity to join a circle of conscience close to you. Each of the circle of conscience now by our constitution and by our governance manual are responsible for holding the secretariat and the board accountable, electing the board, and essentially approving the strategic plan. So this is the legal framework that we have now adopted, and it means that we are no longer very much, governed either by the International Secretariat of Amnesty International in the UK or by any other entity. We are now member governed. So on the 31st, I think it was, of July and the 1st of October, the 30th of September and the 1st of October, about 150 delegates from 75 circles of conscience coming from 12 counties attended a 1.5-day conference. The first day was a business conference, and in that conference, the delegates have to be gender balanced. So they basically approved the 2023 annual financial secretariat and board reports. They approved the plans and budgets for 2024. And probably the most exciting moment there was the discussion, a very vigorous discussion on the strategic plan for the next 5 years that starts in 2024. It was approved, and there were changes made to the strategic plan, in particular to strengthen the support to the circles of conscience and to you, the members, and also to increase the involvement of artists, cultural workers, because we know how important they are in terms of being able to change behavior and attitudes. We also appointed a new auditor, so Erastus and Pro are our auditors. This is important for you members because you are now responsible for just about 0.5% the budget of Amnesty, and it may be a small amount. It is generally growing, and there will be opportunities in 2024 to increase your contributions to Amnesty. But we have it that's the most important financial contribution. It's not necessarily the contribution that comes from Amnesty International or from the 3 or 4 foundations that give us the funding to be able to continue working. It is really membership that is the lifeblood of the movement. There are 3 other important decisions that came out of the annual delegates conference. First of all, the annual delegates have approved that the minimum age of membership is now 12. This is probably one of the youngest thresholds for membership in the world, and I think is something to be celebrated because it means that we are essentially a youth-centered movement. The second thing that was approved in the annual delegates conference was the minimum age for leadership. So for you to be a member of the board or to hold a leadership position within Amnesty, you have to be 18. And this was primarily generated because of our understanding that anybody under the legal age of majority does not have power under Kenyan law to take decisions independently. We saw elections to the preparatory and nominations committees. The preparatory committee is the body that organizes the annual delegates conference. So the board does not do that. It is a member-driven preparatory committee led by 4 members and a nominations committee that manage the elections. So those 2 processes are independent and governed by members. Allow me to just very warmly welcome Diana Watilo, who was elected to the board in the last ADC. So she joins other board members on the board of Amnesty International Kenya. You will be receiving a newsletter, and on our website, we will communicate some of this in more detail. But I just wanted to take the opportunity, given that we're here, to just share this with colleagues. We have a few minutes. Let me just invite any questions or comments on that presentation. Vincent, I can see your electronic hand is up. Please take the mic. Vincent, if you can hear me, please take the mic.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, good evening, and welcome. We can hear you.
Okay, on the matter, let me take you back to the topic that we are discussing on the abolition, or whether to abolish the death sentence. Hello.
We can hear you. Please proceed.
Okay, I'm a bit late. Let me just. From me, I'm of the idea that the death sentence should be abolished, and the perpetrators of the same should be put under lenient. I can't get you clearly.
We lost you after you said that I guess the convicts or the prisoners should be, and then we lost you there. What should happen to people who commit serious crimes?
For me, there's this aspect in law. There's this aspect in law known as plea bargain. Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you. Plea bargaining. How does it work? Just for the those of us who are listening in, how would this help us to deal with serious crimes, but also give us an opportunity or an alternative for the death penalty?
So, for instance, if I'm convicted of a death penalty and found guilty, or I should, or it is I'm very sure that I committed the crime. I should plead for a lenient. Shit, what am I saying? Sorry, let me get myself.
Sentence.
Yeah,
no,
exactly.
It's clear. You're coming through very clearly. A lenient sentence, right?
Yeah, so that instead of taking me to the jail to be hanged, or for anything of the kind, the lenient sentence will help me, and will help the society, because once I'm given that lenient sentence, I'll be an example of the society. So maybe taken through rehabilitation and things of the kind, so that maybe I can now go to the society and preach the right thing. Again, we have this aspect of the doctrine of double effect. Some of these deaths are caused by mistakes, like for instance in the profession of in the doctors or those people, or you may find that he or she committed the death accidentally or out of to save the other party. So if you hang this person or put him under severe penalty, then we might not be right at some time. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Vincent, for taking the mic. Your comment reminded me of some of the work that ICJ Kenya did yesterday and the day before. And one of the things that they pointed out was that many of the persons that are on death row are women who were in abusive relationships. They were women who either had been serially raped by intimate spouses or by people in their community, but there were people who were being brutalized by family members or people close to them. One such case is the case of Ruth Kamande. Kamande, I don't know if you remember that case several years ago. They called her the catwalking killer, is what the media used to call her. And she was basically sentenced to death. And it's been quite a controversial conversation, because at the time they were, her and her lover were in their early 20s. They were using drug abuse. They were abusing drugs, and essentially they got violent. And there was enough evidence to show that both of them had been highly violent towards each other. But unfortunately, nobody stepped in, nobody gave them counseling, and she viciously killed her lover and was essentially arrested and convicted. And she's now serving a sentence at Langata Women's Prison. So your point is very much well taken in terms of that. And let me just take the opportunity just to thank you all for this evening, for participating. We don't take this, lightly in terms of the time. These are not ordinary conversations. For those of you who, like me, like to do serious stuff, but also come at the serious issues from an entertainment lens, I strongly recommend that you watch Just Mercy, the movie with Michael B. Johnson, or The Green Mile, which is an older movie with Tom Hanks, that really explore the dangers of the death penalty, particularly in a US context. Brian Stevenson is a wonderful human being. I've wanted several times to invite him to Kenya. He is probably one of the foremost abolitionists in the United States, and it's his story, The Just Mercy, which we aired with the European Union 2 or 3 years ago, that would be there. So for those of you who are in circles of conscience, perhaps you could assist to spread the conversation through a film festival, and reach out to those of us in the Secretariat to support you to do that. Let me thank you once again and invite you to enjoy the rest of the evening. And we will be in touch, first of all, through the newsletter at the end of the week. But also, for those of you who have signed the petition, we will reach out to you. I have just received Honorable Wandai's telephone number, so I'm going to be setting up a conversation, hopefully not just for Amnesty staff, but even for members, to meet with Honorable Wandai to hear from him, firstly, why did he take on this issue, and what is it that we can do to support the abolition of the death penalty in Kenya. Good night and good evening. Stay well, stay safe, and stay active. Bye-bye, everybody.
Inauma hii side ya left ya chest, naomba boxes zingine za handkerchief. Machozi ligeuza mchanga matope penye umerest. Hisi WhatsApp group unaweza rudi ukileft. Walivakata mabawa usifly again. Clouds ni grey, nguo ni black, macho ni red, colors za pain. It takes a long day kujua life ni short, life haina remote. Unaweza fast forward ama rewind to a happier episode. Machozi ya jana haigandi, tutapanguza na furaha ya justice. Echuju awe, atuko nawe, lala salama, atuko nawe, echuju awe, tapatana, machozi ya jana. Nilijaribu kujiconvince huku juu ya mapenzi ya Mungu. Ukweli ni roza statue ndani ya watu. Sababu seriousness ya poisonous snake, tusipuuze ka cuteness ya pet. Kwa mkono mngekimbilia ndio muliangamia, hamkunuia mlo waliwaandalia. Sound ya glass ya champagne ikigonga cheers, impunity ikicelebrate. Itatizwe na sauti ya nyuto kwa court wakiface judgment. Iwe funzo kwa wenye tabia kama hiyo, mwizi wa uhai hukumu usiwe kuchunwa sikio. Echuju awe, atuko nawe, lala salama, atuko nawe, echuju awe, tapatana, machozi Mungu wajua njia zangu yatengeze, yale siwezi yasongeze, wewe ndiye nguvu ya wanyonge. Ewe Mungu wajua njia zangu yatengeze, yale siwezi yasongeze, wewe ndiye nguvu ya wanyonge. Nalilia yatima wajane kama hana maspouse, damu crime for justice itaranka maji kwa fereji State House, more than hashtags placards, si weta tu ndio waingie behind bars. Enough is enough, ujuzi ya nasa isaidi ndani ya hasa, usiblame good for destination, kichwa inapatia direction.